That today's story is how it tells that every time he escapes from prison, no matter what, no matter how much security there is, this is the story of Japan. Suzuki, the most dreaded prisoner of Japan's highest security prison. He is serving his sentence while roaming around on checking duty. After the guard left, Suzuki suddenly, he smiled and pulled out one of his teeth. Some time later, the guards came to check again. But this time, Suzuki had escaped. They suspected someone was there. Something felt wrong, even to a rookie. He avoided the light without making a sound. He slipped and hid here, and there when the guard checked the isolation cell again. They realized that Suzuki had fled. They immediately called the other guards, and a crowd gathered there in no time. He was seen running across the roof of the jail, shouting loudly. The sirens started ringing, and suddenly a heavy rain began to pour. And that's when we're shown the backstory. 12 years ago, some prisoners were put in a prison. Suzuki was one of the men brought in. He came there to serve his sentence, but he never spoke a word, so everyone believed he was probably mute. There was a strange tattoo on his chest, a reverse Fuji marked on it. He was already famous for jail escapes. He had already done it 3 times. After that, Suzuki was placed in a small room, one that only had a skylight. He stared at that skylight. You could tell what was going through his mind. The guard outside informed the prison warden, Mr. Mires. He said that Suzuki will definitely try it again. But as soon as he looked through the glass, he saw that Suzuki had already vanished. The warden immediately ordered the entire city to be locked down, so Suzuki couldn't escape under any circumstances. But the guards caught him again. Within just 20 minutes, strangely, Suzuki had been running straight on the train tracks. After that, he was imprisoned again in the same room. But this time, he was handcuffed. When a guard peeked inside, Suzuki was sleeping with a sheet covering his face. Angrily, he told Suzuki to remove it. He didn't want to take any chances. Even after being told repeatedly, Suzuki didn't remove the sheet. So the guards beat him together. The next morning, the warden beat him badly. He also removed all of Suzuki's old records. After closely studying his case, they discovered something strange. Every time a train ran across the dry lake at night, Suzuki was somehow caught near the tracks. Once, while chatting with the warden guard, I was shocked when I reached Suzuki's cell, because he had unlocked his handcuffs again. I had hit him in anger before. I asked, how can he open them? How is this even possible? But Suzuki, as always, stayed silent. He was beaten up again, badly. One day, he was seen playing with a small dry wire. Somehow, he had smuggled it inside the jail. The question was, how did he even bring this wire in? How did he roam around with it hidden in his mouth? Using that, he kept unlocking his handcuffs. After a few days, the warden went home for a week-long vacation. Now, Suzuki had the perfect chance to escape. He had to gather all his strength and unlock the door. Soon after, a senior guard came for checking, but he glanced casually. Suzuki was once again seen sleeping, with his face covered. But this Palgar went away without saying anything. But the reality was Suzuki was still inside. No, he had turned into a shadow, like a lizard. He was stuck to the ceiling, waiting for the perfect moment to escape. He waited until everything was clear. Then, slowly, he climbed to the roof. At the last spot, he punched through and ran. When they discovered what had happened, the sirens blared instantly. The warden was alerted right away. He rushed straight to the prison. By the next morning, the police were already searching for Suzuki, planning every move to catch him. The warden himself joined the mission when he arrived. He said, "Deploy all the teams except one. That one team will wait near the railway tracks." Even the officers were confused. They thought the warden had lost his mind. Maybe he was getting old. But the warden wasn't crazy. He knew Suzuki always returned to the same place. With full confidence. He assured them, "I'm 100% sure. We'll catch him there." They trusted him, and his words came true. Suzuki was caught again, right near the tracks. Every time he escapes, he comes out like Chod Harry, with a brain faster than a computer. Because of the warden's brilliant thinking, Suzuki was caught again, and the escape was stopped. The warden was praised and promoted. He became a high-ranking officer, responsible for inspecting prisoners across the country. But still, Suzuki kept escaping. Once again, he fled, and once again was caught on the tracks. Every year, they shifted him to a new prison. Each one had tighter security, but still, he escaped from every single place. The media gave him the title Star Fugitive, and in just 12 years, he became famous all over the country. Later, he was brought to the central jail, where security was the tightest. 10 guards were assigned just to watch him. His room was built entirely of cement. The door had multiple locks. This is the same isolation cell we saw at the beginning of the story. After being placed there, Suzuki began watching everything, looking for another chance to run. One day, a guard brought him food. As he placed the tray inside the cell, Suzuki caught him and handcuffed him to the bars. He immediately blew a whistle, and many more guards rushed in. They beat Suzuki brutally. When he regained consciousness, he was lying behind locked doors. Blood was dripping from his face, falling onto the iron bars. The next morning, the guards found something stuck to his handcuffs. So they gave him a special screwdriver, so he couldn't open them anymore. Before leaving, they checked his body thoroughly again, did some basic checks, then left. Suzuki's days dragged on. He'd provoke the guards, get beaten, and again his blood would stain the bars. One day, the beating was so brutal, one of his teeth fell out, but Suzuki picked it up and looked at it strangely, then started smiling. It was like this was all part of his plan. After that, he began using that tooth to carve something on the wall. Weeks later, Suzuki attacked another guard. This time, he was given the harshest punishment. Yet, they tied him with a long chain and suspended him with a rope. He hung like that for a whole year. Yes, a full year passed. He was still serving his sentence. His condition had worsened. His body was rotting. The wounds never healed. Insects had finally started nesting in them. One evening, the guard came and unlocked his chains. After a year, Suzuki finally felt a strange kind of relief. The warden, Mr. Carr, came for an inspection that day. He checked the isolation cell. Suzuki's condition was terrible, but the warden ignored it and walked away. And then came that same night where the story began. It all started as lightning began to flash outside. When this happened, Suzuki executed his plan. He pulled out his tooth and used it on the handcuffs. Actually, Suzuki wasn't carving anything on the wall. He was sharpening his tooth so he could use it like a tool to escape. After freeing himself, he went to the door and broke an iron rod. He kept pushing the bars constantly. Because of the bleeding, he seemed like a patient, but this was all part of the act. Within moments, the bars snapped and Suzuki escaped from the prison. Suzuki's life story is based on real experience. His mother died shortly after his birth. His father was rotting in jail. That's why Suzuki grew up at a relative's house. He would often go to the jungle on holidays to practice survival skills. One day, he saw someone approaching from a distance. It was a man, and that man turned out to be his father. They talked, and then Suzuki noticed a tattoo of Mount Fuji on his father's chest. Bad luck followed. Soon, some policemen arrived. They were trying to arrest Suzuki's father. Seeing this, his father started running straight onto the railway tracks. That day, young Suzuki vowed to himself, "One day, I will meet my father again." Back in the present, Suzuki escapes again and is back on the tracks. But this time, an old man shouted from behind, "Stop!" Suzuki was shocked. For a moment, he froze. Just then, a team of guards arrived and arrested him. Even the country's most secure prison couldn't stop Suzuki. That's why Mr. Story, the warden, ordered that he be sent to the most dangerous prison ever built. This place wasn't ordinary. It was built in the middle of the ocean. There was a constant strong current. And, most importantly, there were no train tracks at all. The sea surrounded it like a giant barrier. Escape from here was absolutely impossible. Inside the prison, the conditions were just as terrifying. Thousands of guards were stationed all round. If any prisoner tried to escape, he'd be shot on sight. They were ready to shoot Suzuki too. If he ever made a move. As soon as he arrived, he was locked in a special cell. It wasn't a room, but more like a trap. Heavy ropes were tied around Suzuki's body to make sure he couldn't move, let alone escape. Meanwhile, in Moran jail, someone began researching Suzuki in the prison library. They found some old files. They wanted to know more. It seemed Suzuki was meditating right there in the prison. Everyone else thought escape was impossible. But inside Suzuki's mind, a plan was boiling. Suddenly, he dislocated both his shoulders, and, slowly, he began squeezing through a small gap. One prisoner saw him doing this, but he was so drunk, he couldn't say a word. Right then, Mr. Story was also doing research, and just as he was deep in thought, the prison siren started ringing. Instead of panicking, the warden remained calm. He believed there's no way Suzuki can escape from here. He ordered, if any prisoner is spotted outside, shoot on sight. One officer tried to explain, Suzuki is no ordinary prisoner, but the warden ignored him. By morning, the whole island was on alert. Seeing armed guards everywhere, panic spread. Then, Mishra went to Mr. Story. He said, Suzuki has finally found his father. That's why he had allowed himself to be captured repeatedly. Everyone was stunned. Then, Suzuki's truth was revealed. Every escape, every capture, was part of a bigger plan. Suzuki had only one mission, to find and free his father. And now, he had succeeded. Suzuki and his father finally reunited. They hugged each other, and both broke down in tears. Sadly, the warden and his guards were already on their way. But before they could reach, Suzuki disappeared again. This time, with his father. He brought his father to the far end of the island. There, he had already set up to paragliders. Both of them climbed up and flew away to the other side. Later, the warden tried to talk to an old prisoner who had once been locked up with Suzuki's father. He saw a tattoo of Mount Fuji on the man's chest and realized, after all these years of planning and pain, Suzuki ran away with the wrong man. Can anyone have worse luck than this? He went through so much, fought against the system, endured punishment, escaped countless prisons, just to save the wrong person. What do you think? Would you go through so much for your father? Let me know in the comments. *.